It wouldn't surprise me if you said you'd never heard of Gamesir before clicking on this video. The truth is, I'd never heard of them until just a few months ago when they got in touch with me about the G8 Plus, and that quickly became one of my favourite gaming products because of its high quality and extensive features. And if you take a look at their website, you'll notice they've been on an absolute tear with new controllers coming out in rapid succession. And even though they're in the business of making third-party controllers, their goal is to be first choice for gamers. The controller I'll be showing you today isn't the kind you might relegate as the spare one you hand to a friend when they come round for a session. It follows the brand ethos of being feature-rich and pleasant to hold. This is the Gamesir Supernova. Hello friends and good gamers, I just want to quickly say thank you to Gamesir for sending this over to me. No instructions were given and all opinions are my own. So if you don't want to feel overwhelmed by choice when choosing your first Gamesir controller, my advice is to start with compatibility. All of their controllers will work on PC, Mac, Android and iOS. Switch and Xbox compatibility will narrow down your options, and from there you look for the form factor you want. So is it shaped like a Switch controller or an Xbox controller? And finally, does it have the features you need? Those would be the things like paddles, hair triggers, micro switch buttons and more. So that brings us to the Supernova. My first impressions of this controller are very good. I was expecting something at this price point to feel flimsy and light, but it was none of those things. It actually feels legit. At no point have I ever picked this up and thought that it felt lacking. It weighs 263 grams. For reference, the Nintendo Pro controller weighs 247 grams and the Series X controller weighs 278 grams. It has a rectangular body with a smooth, matted plastic finish on the torso, and the handles have a laser engraved rubberized texture. This kind of finish usually worries me a bit because they come off very easily on older Xbox Elite controllers, but it looks to me like Gamesir completely seals it in with the same technique seen on the Nintendo Pro controller, so I'm hoping there's no cause for concern here. I have the Nightfall Blue Edition and I think it looks sick in person. The pictures don't do it justice at all. The gradient and black hardware match up perfectly with these tastefully minimal RGB strips. These lights are potent but slim, so they don't look distracting. If you prefer a brighter colorway, it also comes in whipped pink, and the faceplate is magnetized, so that means we can pry it off and swap it out for another. We can change the button layout and change the anti-friction rings around the sticks. And these use Hall effect technology. Hall effect sticks are becoming an industry standard now because the magnetic components are durable and resistant to drift. The only potential downside to this technology currently is that they have little resistance. This is of course a preference thing. I prefer my sticks to feel a little heavier, like what we might find on official controllers, whilst other people might prefer them to feel light. At the end of the day, from a longevity standpoint, they're a welcome inclusion. And by the way, if you haven't tried analog sticks with anti-friction rings before, you'll be in for a treat. These things make the experience buttery smooth. Finally, the thumb pads have a weaved texture around the rim. This adds a pleasant, grainy sensation, but I think it will be a skin flake and dust magnet. It might require occasional dusting if you have OCD. The membrane face buttons and D-pad all feel excellent. I'm a fan of Gamesir's micro switch buttons on their other controllers, but their membrane implementation here is as good as it gets in my opinion. These feel solid and silent, unlike the wobbly, rattly ones found on the Nintendo Pro and Series X controllers. The D-pad also feels good to me. It has good bounce back and feels decisive. So it's great for your menus and quick slots. I don't play fighting games on a pad anymore, but from what I've tested, it feels fine. Around the back, we have two paddles. These have some nice tactility to them, and they're wide, so your fingers can go deep or shallow when fingering these, making them easy to activate. I prefer how the paddles feel here when compared to the ones on the G7HG and Cyclone 2. Finally, I'm happy to report that the Supernova has physical hair triggers. Activating this toggle physically shortens the travel and makes it feel similar to the one on the Nintendo Pro. You can also turn on the software hair trigger mode by holding the M button and the trigger you want it to be on. This will make it activate fully with just a touch. The Supernova comes packaged with a charging dock. It's not heavy, but it does feel solid enough to cause physical harm if thrown at someone, and the grip on the bottom helps to keep it in place. There's a pass-through port here for the 2.4 GHz dongle. That means you can provide power and connection to this dock with just one cable. It's impossible to sit this incorrectly because it's perfectly molded for the Supernova, and when charging, it activates this cool RGB effect. So what about the features you can't see? Well, it has a 1000 Hz polling rate, on wired and 2.4 GHz modes. I've been using it on the Bluetooth mode, which isn't compatible with the 1000 Hz polling rate, but it feels absolutely fine. So I would expect the other modes to feel even better if you're sensitive to polling rates. It has gyro features for weird people who enjoy gaming like that, and it's responsive enough for aiming in Metroid Prime. There are rumble motors that feel good coming through the robust body. It feels like a massage on the hands rather than a nasty rattle like the one on the Series X official pad. This early scene in Mario Odyssey feels awful on pads with crappy rumble. It feels excellent here. Finally, it has a 1000 mAh battery and compatibility with the Gamesir Connect software for a robust suite of customization options. You can also get the Gamesir app on your phone. It doesn't have the shift layer functionality that the Cyclone 2 has, and whilst this might be a big deal for some players, it's not something that I would make use of, so that doesn't bother me. For this comparison, I have the Easy SMX D05 and the Gamesir Cyclone 2. The D05 has the Xbox shape, and whilst I really love the way it lights up, the quality isn't on par to what the Supernova is offering. It generally feels cheaper and what I would expect from this price point, whilst the Supernova feels like it belongs in a higher price tier. The accessories are also simpler as well. The charging block is larger and doesn't feel or look as nice as Gamesir's one. But as I mentioned earlier, when the lights come on, it does look fantastic. So I won't be kicking this one out of bed just yet. The Cyclone 2 is pretty much identical when it comes to functionality, and the differences are on the physical side. It takes on the Xbox shape as well and has a textured grain instead of the rubberized grips. It uses micro switch face buttons unlike the membrane ones on the Supernova. The hair trigger toggles are on the triggers themselves instead of the body. I prefer how it is on the Supernova because it's much easier to activate. And the aesthetics are louder. It has some lines and shapes printed on the face, and the transparent shell allows the RGB to shine through. Even the charging dock has something to say stylistically. And even though I really like micro switch buttons, the membrane ones on the Supernova are best in class in my opinion. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on not having the micro switches here. Of the two, my preference for feel and aesthetics leans towards the Supernova. The Supernova has made quite an impression on me. I've enjoyed having it in my hands whilst gaming on a Switch, playing retro stuff on my Mac, and I've even put in some serious hours hunting monsters with this controller on my PS5 via a Brook Wingman. And this has come as a surprise because it didn't look that good to me in the product images I'd seen. But while so many products out there look good and end up catfishing you in real life, the Supernova does the opposite. It looks and plays nicer in person. Their purpose for this release was to bring the Nova form factor up to date with the company's latest hardware and features, and in that sense, they've succeeded. It doesn't do anything to overstep the mark. There aren't any polarizing decisions like micro switch buttons that people may or may not like, and no aesthetic or functional choices that are out of the ordinary. That makes this controller a safe choice for many people. So if you're looking for a third-party controller that has modern features like Hall effect sticks, hair triggers and paddle buttons at a good price point, this is an excellent choice. I can confidently say of the 3 Gamesir controllers I own, this is my favorite. Thanks for joining me for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested in the Supernova, please use the links below to support the channel. And I'll see you in the next one.